Whispers in the void. For a long time, deep in the far corners of the galaxy, there were only whispers. Quiet, broken messages passed between old captains, forgotten by most, telling stories that no one dared to believe anymore. Stories about a strange and powerful species that once lived on a small blue planet called Earth. Most young aliens laughed at these tales, calling them old spacers' dreams or tales meant to scare children before bed, because there were no signs of such a race left, no ships flying their flag, no trade routes bearing their name, and no evidence of any human civilization in the known galaxy. But in the shadows of ancient databanks and buried in long-lost war archives, the name humanity still echoed, a word that once made empires shake and fleets burn before they mysteriously vanished many centuries ago, leaving behind only myths and silence. The Galactic Council, made of the most powerful species in the galaxy, had moved on, ruling star systems with pride, fighting wars, making peace, and believing they were now the true masters of the stars, while the name human became nothing more than a forgotten word in old digital books. But things began to change when strange signals were detected by a listening post on the edge of Sector 94, a dead zone where no ships traveled anymore, and where sensor readings often failed, signals that didn't match any known species, signals that felt familiar, like echoes from the past. The officer in charge of the post, a young Zorakian named Tel, tried to decode the signals, and after many long hours, he discovered something terrifying. The signal had human structure, old Earth-based encryption patterns that hadn't been used in over 400 galactic years. Tel immediately sent a message to the Galactic Council, reporting the signal and asking for guidance, but instead of replying, the Council locked his report in a restricted archive and warned Tel not to speak about it again, calling it false noise from dead frequencies. But Tel wasn't the only one who noticed. On the other side of the galaxy, a merchant ship named Varric's Hope went missing near the ruins of the old Vega Drift station, and before its signal vanished, it sent one final message to Control. Unknown vessel detected. Huge, black hull, no lights, no response. Does not match any database. And then silence. The Council tried to hide this too, calling it a pirate attack, but some captains weren't fools, and some races still remembered the stories. The warnings, the legends that said, if a human ship ever returns, it will not return alone. And then, a week later, the impossible happened. A single, massive ship appeared near the Navorian moonbelt, floating in silence, showing no weapons, no ID tags, and no crew hails. Just a dark, black metal body, bigger than any warship ever built, covered in strange symbols that none of the Council races could understand. The Galactic Patrol sent a cruiser to investigate, and as it approached, its sensors shut down, its systems fried, and the ship lost control, forced to drift slowly into space, unable to move, while the unknown ship remained still, watching. And then, from the black ship, a signal was broadcast, short, cold, and clear. We remember. Panic spread across Council planets. Meetings were called, fleets were moved, and spies were sent out to gather information. But there was nothing. No traces of humans anywhere, no known planet called Earth. No functioning colonies, nothing that could explain how such a ship existed or who had sent it. Old Council members began to whisper behind closed doors, reminding each other of the cleansing war that had happened long ago, when the Council, fearing human growth, had united to destroy Earth, sending 10 fleets to crush the planet completely. But now, it seemed, Earth might not have died. And if that was true, if even one human had survived, then the entire galaxy might be in danger. The Council quickly voted to send a fleet of 5 warships to the Black Vessel, hoping to scare it or make contact. But as the ships approached, all communications cut off, and within minutes, all 5 ships simply vanished from radar, their signals erased as if they had never existed. That was the moment the whispers stopped being whispers. Across spaceports, military bases, and outer colonies, fear began to spread. Fear of a ghost from the past, of a force that had waited in the dark, watching and remembering, and now, perhaps, returning. The galaxy had forgotten about humans. But humans, it seemed, had never forgotten the galaxy. And somewhere in the dark between stars, something was moving. Something big. Something human. And it was not alone. For the last 2 weeks, every high command room across the Galactic Council's strongest member species had been in a state of panic. Not because of war or rebellion, but because a single unknown ship had appeared near the Navorian moonbelt. Dark, silent, and terrifying in its calmness. And 5 fully armed warships sent to investigate had disappeared without leaving behind even a single distress signal or debris trail. Now, deep inside the Grand Council Hall orbiting Yelix Prime, The 11 ruling species sat behind shining silver panels, their faces tense, their voices quiet, as they reviewed the only message ever received from that mysterious ship. 2 chilling words broadcast in every galactic language, heard not through translation programs, but as a direct transmission into the minds of everyone listening. We remember. Some believed it was a threat, some thought it was a warning, and a few feared it was just the beginning of something far worse, something that should have stayed buried in forgotten records, hidden behind military cover-ups, and the lies told by history books for over 400 years. In a far corner of the galaxy, where no major trade routes passed and no patrol ships ever visited, a science vessel named Taraka was quietly studying a neutron star, its crew of researchers busy with readings and energy scans, completely unaware of what was coming their way, until the stars around them suddenly bent and twisted, and a tear in space opened like a silent wound, swallowing the light and pulling their attention toward it. Out of that silent tear came a ship, not fast, not loud, but steady, calm, and controlled. A ship unlike anything the scientists had ever seen, with a dark black surface that reflected no starlight, smooth hulls with deep grooves shaped like ancient symbols, and a strange red glow pulsing softly from its center, as if it had a heart that beat in slow, terrifying rhythm. Captain Varen of the Taraka, a Drelthian with decades of experience in space, tried to send a standard greeting, followed by a scan, but the ship gave no response, and the scan failed instantly, not just blocked but reversed, as if the unknown ship had scanned them back with a power that read through metal, code, and bone itself. The crew watched in silence as the ship passed by, slowly turning in space, never aiming weapons, never changing course, yet making every person on board feel like they were being watched, weighed, and remembered by something far older than anything they had ever known. The Taraka returned to Council space as fast as its engines could carry it, and their reports spread like wildfire across military channels, but the Council tried to contain the fear by labeling it Unknown Scout Vessel, non-aggressive, hoping that by naming it, they could control it or at least calm their own people. But fear is not easy to control, especially when ships begin appearing across multiple sectors, always one at a time, always without warning, and always moving slowly as if mapping out old paths and memories, passing near old battle sites from the human wars, near destroyed outposts that no one had visited in centuries. Outposts that had once fired the first shots against Earth. The public began to ask questions, and the more the Council tried to stay silent, the louder the fear grew, especially when a mining station near Planet Raver sent a frantic message. Ship approaching, no ID, systems crashing, engines off, can't breathe, can't move. Someone, please. Before the signal cut off, leaving only silence and a single pulse echo that matched ancient Earth signal patterns. In a desperate move, the Council sent a peace envoy led by the auxiliary diplomat Kraven, known for calming even the most hostile species, but as soon as their vessel entered the Trillium Drift, the sector where another black ship had last been seen, their communication feed flickered, their ship lights dimmed, and then, instead of silence, a voice came through. It was not loud. It was not angry. It was calm, firm, and cold. This galaxy burned our home. We have not forgotten. And just like that, the envoy's ship disappeared. No wreckage, no trace, as if it had been erased from time itself. At this point, the Galactic Council had no choice but to accept the truth that had terrified them since the first whisper. The humans were returning, not as explorers, not as diplomats, and not as conquerors, but as something worse, something quiet, patient, and ancient, something that had watched the galaxy forget them, and now wanted the galaxy to remember every detail of what it had done. All across the galaxy, fleets were ordered to stand by, defenses were raised, emergency protocols were activated, but deep in every captain's heart, there was one truth they could not escape. A storm was coming, and at the center of that storm stood the race they once destroyed. Earth had not been forgotten. Earth had not forgiven. And Earth was coming back, with a fleet. Long ago, before the Galactic Council was formed, and before the major alien species ruled over thousands of systems, there had been strange stories passed from trader to trader, pirate to pirate, and even soldier to soldier, stories about a species called humans who had come from a blue and green planet on the edge of a quiet spiral arm, and who fought like beasts but thought like machines. These stories spoke of warriors who refused to surrender even when outnumbered, of commanders who used insane tactics that somehow worked, of weapons that broke space-time laws, and of ships that came back from the dead. And most of all, they spoke of a final battle where the humans were destroyed completely. Or so everyone thought. But now, as the mysterious black ships continued to appear across different sectors, silent, unscannable, unstoppable. Those old stories, once laughed at and dismissed, began to sound less like myths and more like warnings that no one had listened to. In the central archives of the Galactic Military Command, a young analyst named Laura Turvin had been digging through restricted data, looking for patterns in the strange ship sightings, and what she found made her blood run cold. Each ship had appeared near ancient battlefield ruins from the old human Purge War. Each ship had followed the same exact movement patterns recorded by human scout ships 400 years ago. And each signal sent by them matched Earth's old wartime encryption codes that were supposed to be extinct. Laura tried to warn her superior officers, but most didn't listen, until one of the ships passed directly over Station Varnox, the largest weapons platform in Council space, and disabled it completely without firing a single shot. The ship didn't even pause. It simply drifted over the station, and in less than 30 seconds, every defense system, missile bay, laser cannon, and backup reactor shut down like someone had flipped a switch, leaving the entire station dark and helpless as the ship vanished into hyperspace again. Panic spread quickly. The Council was now forced to admit publicly what they had been hiding for weeks. Unknown vessels were moving through Council space at will, ignoring all defenses, and the Council had no idea how to stop them. That's when the people started whispering. They didn't whisper about the Council. They didn't whisper about war. They whispered about humans. All over the galaxy, in spaceports, bars, and comm centers, the same words kept spreading. They're back. The older generation, those who had read forbidden books or heard tales from dying soldiers, knew the name Earth, and they knew the name Terran Fleet Command, the name that once made whole empires shiver in fear. And when a hidden probe captured the first full image of one of the mysterious ships, a massive wide-winged Titan with glowing red engines, and the words TFC Retribution, written in old Earth script across its hull, those legends became truth. There was no more doubt. Humanity was alive. And they had returned with technology far beyond what anyone could imagine. The image spread like wildfire across every network, and one simple question echoed across millions of planets. How did they survive? The last war with Earth had ended in a firestorm. Every known human world had been bombed. Every ship had been hunted down. Every leader had been executed. The Council had declared Earth space cleansed. So how? How had they rebuilt? Where had they gone? And most terrifying of all, why had they returned now? In secret meetings, Council leaders argued day and night. Some wanted to surrender immediately, fearing complete destruction. Others wanted to launch a full strike, sending every fleet they had to destroy the incoming threat. But the oldest member of the Council, High Elder Brethren of the Korok species, stood up slowly and said something that silenced the entire room. You cannot destroy a ghost with missiles. You cannot outrun your past. The humans are not attacking us. They are reminding us. No one understood what he meant. But 2 days later, when a full Council fleet, 50 warships strong, was sent to intercept the TFC Retribution in the Orvan sector, the galaxy finally understood. The human ship didn't run. It waited. And when the Council ships arrived and opened fire, the Retribution did not return fire. It simply activated a field. And every single Council ship, 50 of them, froze in place. Their engines stopped. Their weapons melted. Their crew passed out. When they awoke, they were drifting safely in space, untouched, unharmed. But all of their data had been wiped, and every screen displayed one chilling sentence. This is only the beginning. We remember what you did. From that moment, fear spread faster than light. This wasn't war. This was justice. Cold, patient, human justice. And the galaxy had no idea what would come next. The Galactic Council, once proud and feared across the stars, now sat in silent shame, knowing that their mighty fleet had been crushed without even a single shot being fired by the enemy, an enemy they had once declared extinct, an enemy they had mocked, hunted, and erased from history, humanity. But pride dies hard in the hearts of rulers. Even after the terrifying encounter with the Terran ship Retribution, there were still many voices inside the Council who refused to believe that humans were truly more powerful than them now. These voices shouted that the humans must be using some kind of trick, that maybe it was just one ship, maybe stolen, maybe left behind from the old war, and if they acted fast, they could destroy it before the rest of these ghost ships appeared. So, they formed a secret plan. The Council called it Operation Silence, a mission to trap and destroy the Retribution using their best weapon, the Shadow Nova, a giant stealth dreadnought built in total secrecy, designed to kill planets and hide from every known scanner in the galaxy. They launched it under cover of darkness, sending it alone into the Orvan sector with one task: ambush the Retribution and erase it completely. On the bridge of the Shadow Nova, Commander Vark Talon, one of the youngest but most ruthless captains in Council history, believed this would be his moment of glory. He ordered his crew to remain silent, using old pirate tactics to follow the human ship's trail across deep space without being noticed. For 2 days, they stalked the Retribution like a predator hunting prey. But the moment they got close enough to fire, every screen on their ship went dark. Alarms blared. Weapons froze. Gravity shut down. And in front of them, on the main view screen, appeared a single image: a human in dark armor, face hidden, standing inside a starfield, with red eyes glowing behind a helmet. Then, a voice, cold and clear, spoke directly into every mind on board. "You follow us in shadows, but we were born in darkness. You planned our death. We planned our return." The Shadow Nova vanished from all sensors across the galaxy. Every signal from it disappeared. And just like that, the Council had lost its most powerful secret weapon. There were no survivors. Only one piece of data made it out: an emergency transmission automatically sent 5 seconds before everything went silent. It was a simple sentence, typed in panic by a junior officer. It read, "They knew we were coming." That was when panic truly spread. For the first time, the Council realized they were not in control anymore. They had tried force. They had tried silence. Both had failed. And now, worse news came in from distant systems. Human ships had been seen near mining colonies, communication hubs, even deep space relays, and in every case, the result was the same: power loss, system failure, no deaths, but complete control taken by the Terran fleet. But still, the humans did not attack. They didn't destroy cities. They didn't demand tribute. They didn't speak to the Council at all. They were sending a message, and it was getting louder each day. In desperation, the Council did something no one expected. They called for help from their oldest enemies, the warborn clans of Urgath, the only species that had fought the humans before the Council ever formed. The Urgath were savage, brutal, and filled with hatred for Earth's people. They remembered the old war not as shame, but as unfinished business. When they received the Council's plea, the Urgath chieftains laughed and beat their war drums, promising they would crush the humans once and for all, with honor and blood. They sent a fleet of destroyers, old but powerful, into Terran-controlled space. And this time, they did not wait. They fired on sight. Dozens of human ships were targeted. Explosions rocked through the black of space. But when the smoke cleared, nothing had changed. Not one human ship had been hit. Their shields were too fast. Their countermeasures too advanced. And when the Urgath fleet tried to escape, they couldn't. One by one, their ships were disabled mid-flight, their weapons turned against themselves, their engines frozen, and their communication systems hijacked. And then, across every Urgath ship, the same message appeared on screen: "The war you started will be ended by those you could not kill." The Council watched in horror as the proud Urgath fleet was towed by human ships into deep space and vanished. No wreckage, no distress signals, just silence. The kind of silence that feels like a warning. Now, across the galaxy, fear became the dominant feeling. Fear of a force that had returned not for conquest, but for judgment. The legends were true. The Terran fleet was not just back. It was watching. And the Council was running out of time. The Galactic Council had tried to erase Earth from the stars, to wipe out every trace of the planet they once feared. And yet now, the name Earth echoed louder than ever, spoken in hushed tones by smugglers, whispered across military channels, and feared by every species who once called humans extinct. But the truth was worse than they imagined, because Earth was not gone. It had survived in silence, hidden from the galaxy, watching from the shadows, building not just weapons, but a future. And now, as Council leaders argued in fear and panic, a signal was received, strong, clear, and sent to every member world at the same moment. It was not encrypted. It was not a threat. It was an invitation. "This is Terra Prime. We are not your enemy, but we remember." For a few seconds, no one moved. And then, for the first time in over a century, Earth's real voice echoed across space. The Council scrambled to trace the signal, to find its source, to break its encryption, but it was already too late. Humans had sent it through 1,000 paths at once, using technology the galaxy couldn't understand. Then, as the Council watched, a second message arrived, this time a video, old and strange, showing a world most of the galaxy had forgotten. a blue and green planet, a spinning globe, Earth. And in the video, a human spoke. An old man, wearing a long coat, standing under a sky filled with stars. His voice was calm, but heavy with pain. You thought we were weak. You thought silence meant surrender. But silence is what comes before thunder. He spoke of the first contact. He spoke of the betrayal, of the fleets that came to destroy Earth, of the Council's weapons raining fire on cities, of the last war where humanity vanished from the stars. And then he said something that made every heart across the galaxy stop beating. We didn't lose. We left. That line, just those 3 words, sent shockwaves through the minds of every general, every senator, every warrior who thought they understood war. Because now they saw the truth. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had vanished by choice. And now they had returned by plan. In the Galactic Council chamber, panic turned to terror. What kind of species chooses to disappear? What kind of civilization survives in hiding, only to come back stronger, faster, and more prepared than anything the galaxy had ever seen? And worse, what else had they been building? Now, across border systems, human ships started landing, not with weapons drawn, but with machines, scientists, builders. They offered aid to broken colonies. They healed the sick with nanotech the galaxy had never seen. They planted forests on dead moons. And still, they said nothing of war. Still, they did not attack. But the message was clear. We can destroy you, but we choose not to. The Council's own people started to question their leaders. Why were the humans helping the poor? Why were they restoring systems the Council had ignored for years? Why were they rebuilding planets without asking anything in return? And deep inside Earth's system, hidden behind walls of dark matter and quantum shields, was old Earth, the true core of the Terran revival. It was no longer just a planet. It was a fortress, a symbol, and at its center stood the voice of Earth, the same old man who had spoken on the broadcast. His name was Commander Arlen Voss, the last surviving leader from the day the Earth fell. But now he was more than a soldier. He was the heart of the Terran fleet, and he was preparing for what came next. Back in the Galactic Council, panic reached its breaking point. One faction wanted to beg for peace. Another wanted to prepare for all-out war. But the humans had already made the next move. In 22 major Council-controlled systems, Terran ships appeared, not as invaders, but as watchers. They surrounded no worlds. They opened no fire. They just hovered, silent, glowing with energy, visible to every eye, a warning to all. We see you. And now, a new fear began to grow. What if the humans weren't here for war? What if they were here for justice? What if this was not the beginning of conquest, but the end of judgment? And just as the Council struggled with that question, a final signal came through. This time, only 4 words, sent to every government, every ruler, every warship in the galaxy. It said, "The reckoning begins now." The signal echoed across the galaxy, reaching deep space stations, Council strongholds, pirate dens, and hidden listening posts, carrying just 4 simple words that made even the boldest generals feel cold inside. The reckoning begins now. It was not a threat. It was a promise. And in that moment, the galaxy understood. The humans had returned not for revenge, but for justice, and justice was something far more terrifying than war. Across many star systems, the Terran warships that had silently hovered for days now moved, not quickly, not with force, but with terrifying precision, forming perfect formations as they approached the outer defenses of former Council outposts, mining colonies, and old war bunkers. The humans didn't speak. They didn't explain. They just acted. In Sector 4 Beta, a Council listening post that once ordered the bombing of Earth's moon found itself surrounded by 5 Terran ships shaped like long black blades, glowing with blue energy, silent and unmoving as the Council defenders sent desperate signals to Command. But Command could not help them. Within seconds, the Terran ships disabled every weapon, every shield, every system, using non-lethal energy pulses that shut down entire stations without firing a single shot. They didn't kill. They didn't destroy. They simply took control. Then came the broadcast, a short message, from the voice of Earth himself, Commander Arlen Voss. His image appeared across the broken screens of the captured outposts. His voice was calm. His eyes were full of sorrow. You bombed civilians. You erased history. You silenced our children. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to show you what justice looks like. At that moment, across a dozen systems, Terran units landed. They weren't soldiers. They were investigators, archivists, Engineers. Machines followed them. Flying drones, glowing repair units, and small walking bots with hundreds of tools. The humans weren't there to take territory. They were gathering evidence. They were rebuilding history. Old human ruins once buried by Council forces were unearthed. Abandoned cities on Mars, Earth's colonies, and even distant human settlements once bombed to ash were scanned, restored, and projected live across the galaxy. Everyone saw what the Council had done. Everyone saw the truth that had been hidden for over 100 years. And slowly, one by one, alien worlds that once cheered for Earth's fall began to feel shame, guilt, and fear. Because this wasn't just about war. This was about exposure. For the first time, the Terrans weren't fighting with weapons. They were fighting with truth. But in the Council chambers, old pride still burned. Several high-ranking leaders called the Terran actions propaganda. They demanded immediate retaliation. They prepared fleets to move toward Terran positions. But before they could launch, something unexpected happened. Half of their ships refused to follow orders. Entire crews, alien crews, turned against their commanders. They sent messages to Terra Prime, asking for asylum. They said they believed in what humanity was doing. They said they no longer trusted the Council. Some officers cried on video. Some dropped their weapons and begged for forgiveness. And still, the humans didn't attack. Still, they didn't claim planets. Still, they didn't rule. They just watched. They just kept recording. And that was what scared the galaxy the most. Because when a species chooses peace while holding the power to crush everything, it means they've grown stronger than anything you've ever known. In the shadows, the Council's secret divisions tried one last move. They launched hidden drones, cloaked in dark matter, to assassinate Commander Voss and key Terran leaders. But they failed. Because the Terrans were already watching. Each drone was disabled mid-flight. Each assassin was captured alive. And the Terrans did not kill them. They interviewed them, recorded their stories, and then, in a move no one expected, released them with one message attached. You are not our enemies. You are victims of lies. Go. Tell the truth. It was a move so powerful, so shocking, that even hardened warlords began to pause. Because the humans weren't just winning battles. They were changing hearts. They were changing the very rules of power. Now, across the stars, ancient legends once whispered in fear had become real. The humans had returned. And this time, they weren't angry. They were something worse. They were patient. And with every moment, more and more of the galaxy realized. The reckoning had only just begun. Across every star system, space station, moon colony, and deep space outpost, there was now only one thing people talked about: the humans. Not the weak ones from the past. Not the broken race that had once begged for mercy. Not the laughingstock of the galaxy. No, this was a different humanity. And the galaxy was finally beginning to understand the truth. It wasn't just their warships that scared people now. It was the way those ships moved like they already knew what their enemies would do, the way humans acted without panic, without hate, and without showing off their power like so many arrogant empires before them. For the first time, people feared the humans not because of destruction, but because of their control. They didn't need to fire a shot to win. They only needed to show up. 1 week after the Terran fleet had arrived, over 20 planets had surrendered voluntarily, not out of fear, but out of shame and guilt, asking forgiveness for supporting the Council's war crimes long ago. On the planet Ulvera Prime, the leaders held a global broadcast, bowing before a Terran projection, admitting they had lied to their own people, teaching them that Earth had attacked first when it was the Council that had bombed Earth's colonies. The broadcast ended with Ulveran children planting flowers under a statue of a human child. The statue of Leon Brooks, a 6-year-old girl killed in the Lunar Massacre, now remembered as the first flame of Earth's rebirth. All across the galaxy, memorials were built. Songs were written. Alien artists began painting humans not as monsters, but as survivors. And still, the humans said nothing. Their fleet remained silent. Their leaders gave no speeches of victory. They simply kept watching. And that was what made the Council fall apart. Old power-hungry species, once allies, now turned against each other, blaming each other for the loss, for the lies, for the shame that had swept through the stars like wildfire. In secret meetings, Council elites tried to plan one last move. A weapon called Starshard, a planet cracker. They wanted to fire it at Terra Prime itself, hoping to destroy the human homeworld before things got worse. But the humans already knew. They had been tracking Starshard for months. And when the Council finally launched it, It never left the station, because the humans had already disabled it remotely, without even being near, without touching it, without warning. And instead of destroying the station or arresting anyone, they sent one last message. This is not how we destroy empires. This is how empires destroy themselves. With that, the Terran fleet did something no one expected. They turned around. They left. They didn't take territory. They didn't demand tribute. They didn't claim power. They simply faded back into the stars, silent and watchful, leaving behind a galaxy that would never forget them. Some aliens called it mercy. Some called it strategy. Some said the humans had just taught the most powerful lesson ever given. The greatest force in the galaxy is not violence. It is truth. Back on Earth, the people didn't celebrate. There were no victory parades, no parties. They remembered the dead. They built quiet gardens. They told stories to children about pain and hope. And far above Earth, the Terran fleet remained in orbit, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Because they knew one day, someone else would try again. And next time, Earth wouldn't be caught by surprise. Now, every species in the galaxy remembered the ancient whispers they had once laughed at. If you hurt Earth, they will come. If you betray Earth, they will remember. And if you awaken their fleet, nothing will ever be the same again. And now the galaxy believed. Because they had seen it. Because they had felt it. Because when the humans returned, they didn't just bring ships. They brought a legend. And that legend had now become real.